This is the most diabolical thing ever happened in the history of the monarchy.
According to reports, a startling incident that had never before been made public unfolded during a private rehearsal for Prince William's future coronation, an episode that allegedly brought the British royal family to the edge of a serious internal confrontation. In the beginning, every aspect of the rehearsal unfolded with flawless accuracy, operating like a ceremony, perfected through centuries of tradition. Then, without warning, William spotted an unusual detail involving Queen Camilla. What first appeared to be a simple alteration quickly revealed itself as something far more significant, an action he viewed as crossing an important line, challenging the monarchy's long-standing principles of honor protocol and fairness. Refusing to overlook what he had discovered, William reportedly ordered the rehearsal to stop at once. Witnesses claimed the entire abbey fell into an eerie silence. Camilla remained outwardly calm, seemingly convinced that William would eventually back down, while King Charles allegedly recognized that his eldest son had reached the point where compromise was no longer an option. The tension reached its highest point when William firmly announced that he would refuse to take part in the coronation unless the situation was corrected without delay, a declaration that reportedly left Camilla with almost no possible response. What exactly caught William's attention that made him prepared to jeopardize the entire coronation? And after finding herself cornered, will Camilla truly concede defeat? Or is she quietly planning an even more daring move behind the scenes? The first rays of morning sunlight streamed through the stained glass windows of Westminster Abbey, painting brilliant bands of color across the crimson carpet, stretching along the central aisle. It was the final and most significant rehearsal for Prince William's future coronation, the man destined to inherit the highest responsibility within the monarchy. Now in his early 40s, Prince William embodied unwavering dedication and steadfast determination. Following the highly publicized family turmoil of the 2020s, most notably the irreversible divide with Prince Harry, and the death of Queen Elizabeth II in 2022, he had developed an even stronger sense of duty. To William, the crown represented far more than priceless jewels or royal authority. It symbolized a sacred covenant with the British people, demanding that every ceremony, every tradition, and every position remain faithful to rules established over generations. Standing nearby, King Charles III carried himself like a man who had spent decades waiting for this historic chapter, yet whose reign had already become defined by difficult compromises. The measured footsteps of ceremonial officials echoed across the ancient stone floor as every detail unfolded with remarkable precision. Everything appeared to function as smoothly as an expertly crafted timepiece. Positioned at the heart of the abbey, William carefully observed every movement. He watched attendants straighten the altar cloth with meticulous care, while staff positioned the heavy oak chairs exactly where they were intended to stand. The solemn rehearsal projected an illusion of complete order, giving every impression that the event was unfolding without the slightest flaw. That illusion disappeared the moment William looked toward the seating reserved for the senior members of the royal family. An uneasy feeling swept over him. Queen Camilla stood there with remarkable composure. After enduring decades of criticism, controversy, and public scrutiny before ultimately becoming queen, she projected a quiet confidence. Rather than relying on dramatic displays, Camilla had built influence through patience and subtle persistence, gradually shaping the monarchy from within. The first indication that something was wrong came from where she had been positioned. Based on long-established protocol and the confidential seating plans William had personally examined in advance, Camilla's place was designed to preserve the careful balance of the royal line of succession. Yet her chair had clearly been shifted farther forward and raised slightly above its original placement. The adjustment elevated her presence, placing her visually much closer to the monarchy's most prominent positions than protocol originally intended. Meanwhile, Princess Anne's designated place told a very different story. The Princess Royal, widely respected as the monarchy's tireless workhorse and one of its most loyal figures since Queen Elizabeth II's reign, had been quietly moved farther from the center of the ceremony. The alteration was subtle enough that an ordinary observer might have dismissed it as nothing more than a practical adjustment to the layout. William felt a wave of tension tighten across his chest. His thoughts briefly returned to the difficult days after the late Queen's passing, when countless late-night discussions had been devoted to determining the exact order of precedence and defining every royal role with complete fairness. He vividly remembered Princess Anne's unwavering commitment to those principles. Lowering her position was not merely an innocent seating mistake. It represented a deliberate reduction of the respect owed to her and a subtle attempt to reshape the monarchy's internal balance of authority. He instinctively looked toward his father, expecting some sign that Charles had also noticed the discrepancy. Instead, the king remained absorbed in conversation with a senior clergyman regarding the coronation oath. William understood better than most that within the monarchy, symbolism carried enormous significance. Once one boundary became blurred, it could gradually open the door for even greater compromises in the future. His fingers slowly curled into a fist as he fixed his attention on the space separating Camilla's elevated chair from Princess Anne's diminished position. To him, that empty distance represented something far greater than furniture placement. It symbolized a betrayal of the values he had pledged to defend. The atmosphere inside Westminster Abbey suddenly felt unusually heavy, as though centuries of royal history were silently watching every moment unfold. William knew that remaining silent would amount to accepting something he believed was fundamentally wrong. Although confrontation was never his preference, he also understood that his responsibility was to safeguard the integrity of the monarchy. Such an institution could never endure if favoritism and personal ambition were allowed to masquerade as tradition. His expression hardened as his resolve became absolute. Only one question remained before him, a matter of honor that demanded an answer immediately. Within moments, the fragile calm that had settled over the rehearsal stood on the verge of being shattered by William's unwavering determination. William's silence was anything but agreement. It was the stillness that comes just before a storm breaks. He started walking each deliberate step, carrying enough weight to make those nearby instinctively fall silent. Rather than confronting Camilla immediately, he slowly circled the ceremonial platform, moving with the careful precision of a commander, surveying every inch of a battlefield before making his next move. His attention locked onto every minute detail. It soon became obvious that the alterations had been executed with remarkable precision. Camilla's chair had not only been elevated, but also angled strategically, so that television cameras would naturally center on her whenever they captured the royal seating. In doing so, other members of the direct line of succession would be partially pushed out of view. It was not an accidental adjustment. It was a carefully orchestrated visual strategy intended to present her as more prominent than protocol allowed. William eventually stopped before a protocol official, clutching a thick binder filled with seating charts. The moment the officer met the prince's eyes, his confidence disappeared. His hands shook as he hurriedly turned page after page, unable to find the explanation he desperately wanted. His eyes darted anxiously, and beads of perspiration formed across his forehead, despite the cool air inside the abbey. That nervous reaction told William everything he needed to know. Had it truly been a harmless mistake, someone would have immediately admitted the error. Fear of this kind only surfaced when people were attempting to hide instructions that had come from someone more powerful. Inside, William's frustration and responsibility collided. Many outsiders would likely dismiss the issue as nothing more than royal obsession over seating arrangements. But for someone raised to preserve the institution's traditions, the matter reached far beyond furniture placement. Order was the foundation upon which the monarchy depended. If Camilla could alter official protocol today without consequence, Then tomorrow, the fairness and transparency William hoped to establish during his future reign would lose all credibility. Without even looking behind him, William could sense Camilla standing nearby. He imagined the composed expressions she continued to wear, the confidence of someone convinced the outcome had already been decided. She seemed like a person who had long mastered the art of bending tradition to serve her own objectives. That quiet certainty only intensified William's anger. At the same time, he felt genuine sympathy for Princess Anne, whose lifetime of unwavering service to the crown was now being overshadowed by what he viewed as an act driven by personal vanity. An event coordinator finally stepped forward, forcing an uneasy smile in an effort to ease the growing tension. When William indicated the altered chair, the official stumbled through explanations involving camera positioning and visual symmetry. Yet the most revealing statement came when he casually added that every modification had already been reviewed and approved by a higher office. Those words confirmed William's deepest concern. Camilla had not acted independently. She had relied on the authority surrounding King Charles to give legitimacy to the changes. William's fury never erupted into shouting or reckless behavior. Instead, it transformed into an unsettling calm. He realized the rehearsal had become something much greater than preparation for a ceremony. It had become a confrontation over principle and authority. Remaining silent would not only betray Princess Anne, but also compromise the future monarchy he was destined to inherit. He refused to allow personal ambition to undermine the values that sacred place was meant to represent. Without speaking a word, William lifted his hand in a firm, unmistakable signal, ordering the rehearsal to stop immediately. The effect was instantaneous, as though an enormous machine had been brought to an abrupt halt. Conversations faded into silence. The orchestra stopped playing. The guards froze where they stood, and every aide remained motionless. Westminster Abbey, moments earlier so vast, suddenly felt suffocatingly small. Every anxious, astonished, and curious gaze turned toward the prince, standing in the center of the nave, his expression as cold and immovable as carved stone. He remained silent, yet that silence carried extraordinary authority, a clear challenge against the abuse of protocol he believed had just been uncovered. William's commanding gesture sliced through the rehearsal with unmistakable finality. The orchestra fell silent in the middle of a passage, leaving only scattered notes echoing through the towering arches of Westminster Abbey before disappearing into an overwhelming stillness. Hundreds of people inside the cathedral seemed frozen where they stood, scarcely daring to breathe, as the tension became almost unbearable. Without haste, William walked toward the royal platform. His icy blue eyes fixed themselves on the seating arrangement that had been altered. His expression resembled that of a judge studying undeniable evidence before delivering a verdict. Raising one finger, he pointed directly toward the obvious discrepancy between Camilla's elevated position and Princess Anne's diminished place, a silent accusation far more powerful than any spoken criticism. Attention immediately shifted toward Queen Camilla. For the first time, faint cracks appeared beneath her usual confidence. She remained perfectly upright in her formal attire, yet her tightly clasped hands around her handbag betrayed growing tension as the veins in her fingers became visible. She attempted to preserve a restrained diplomatic smile, the sort intended to reduce the situation to nothing more than an unfortunate misunderstanding. But when she met William's unwavering stare, she realized that such reassurance would no longer work. King Charles suddenly found himself trapped in the very conflict he had hoped to avoid. Standing between his wife and his eldest son, he seemed to age in an instant. His expression reflected both sympathy for Camilla, now under intense pressure, and admiration for William's uncompromising determination. Charles understood that this was not the reaction of an emotional son. William was acting as the Prince of Wales, fulfilling what he believed was his responsibility to defend the monarchy's integrity. The king's silence revealed his painful indecision. He wished to shield Camilla, yet he could not ignore that William was highlighting what appeared to be a direct violation of the very order Charles himself had pledged to uphold. William advanced another step until only a short distance separated him from Camilla. He spoke no words, but the tension visible in his clenched jaw and unwavering stare made his demand unmistakably clear. Then he reinforced his position through a symbolic gesture. Slowly removing his ceremonial gloves, he placed them carefully on a nearby wooden table, signaling that there would be no retreat. To William, the issue had long since ceased to be about chairs. It had become a question of trust. If something as fundamental as the coronation ceremony could be manipulated to satisfy one individual's ambitions, then the ceremony's true purpose, honoring tradition and serving the nation, would lose its meaning entirely. The atmosphere inside Westminster Abbey became almost impossible to bear. Even the sound of people's breathing seemed unnaturally loud. Camilla, surrounded by aides who no longer dared defend her, began experiencing the isolation that often accompanies power. Her carefully controlled composure slowly gave way to unmistakable anxiety, revealed through increasingly rapid breaths. She realized she had underestimated William. The man she believed would always choose family harmony over confrontation was now fully prepared to risk everything in defense of principle. The confrontation reached its highest point when William turned towards King Charles. There was no appeal in his eyes, only quiet certainty. He gave the slightest shake of his head a simple movement carrying enormous significance. The message was unmistakable unless the seating plan was restored to its original form. He would leave Westminster Abbey and abandon the coronation altogether. That silent ultimatum struck the heart of the monarchy like a bolt of lightning, leaving almost no room for compromise beneath the ancient cathedral's towering roof. William's silent warning that he was prepared to walk away struck Westminster Abbey with the force of a massive weight crashing into still water, sending invisible shockwaves throughout the historic building. What followed was complete silence, not the peaceful quiet expected during a royal ceremony, but the unsettling stillness of collective disbelief. Senior protocol officials remained rooted where they stood, the folders in their hands, trembling ever so slightly. Even the honor guards, though maintaining perfect posture, seemed unable to keep their focus forward, as though they wished to avoid witnessing the crisis unfolding before them. That silence carried all the authority of a final judgment. In an instant, it stripped away the appearance of unity the royal family had carefully maintained for years. William stood unmoving, his posture unwavering and solid as stone, without the slightest indication that he might reconsider. He did not need raised voices or dramatic displays of anger. His calm determination spoke louder than any outburst ever could. His eyes remained fixed on Camilla's altered seat, making it unmistakably clear that he was prepared to challenge the entire institution in defense of a single principle: fairness. Across from him, Camilla's confidence, the shield she had relied upon for decades, began to erode. The cool air drifting through the abbey suddenly seemed to penetrate to the bone. Her uneasiness became visible when she instinctively stepped backward by the slightest margin, an unconscious act of self-protection. She turned toward Charles, hoping to find the reassurance and support he had always given her. Instead, she found only a weary man visibly burdened by the impossible position in which he had been placed. King Charles III remained motionless at the center of the conflict, his face marked by quiet anguish. His eyes moved from William the heir, displaying the unwavering resolve expected of a future sovereign, to Camilla, the woman he had fought for through years of public controversy before finally seeing her crowned queen. He understood that whatever he chose to say at that moment would solve nothing. Supporting Camilla would almost certainly destroy William's confidence in him and risk an unprecedented constitutional crisis on the eve of the coronation. Supporting William, however, would publicly diminish the dignity of the woman he loved. Either decision promised lasting consequences. Charles's attention eventually shifted toward Princess Anne, who stood calmly in the distance without uttering a single complaint. Her quiet dignity and unwavering composure only deepened his feelings of regret. He suddenly realized that William's silence represented more than a defense of protocol. It had become the voice of the monarchy's conscience, a reminder of principles that Charles himself had occasionally allowed personal loyalties to overshadow. The standoff seemed endless. Even the sunlight filtering through the stained glass windows appeared dimmer than before. Slowly, Camilla lowered her head, a gesture almost unimaginable for someone known for such quiet pride. Her lips tightened while her eyes settled upon the crimson carpet beneath her feet. Her silence was not born from genuine remorse. Instead, it reflected reluctant acceptance of a reality she could no longer avoid in this struggle. William possessed the one advantage she could not overcome: his unwavering commitment to principle. At last, Camilla made a subtle motion toward a nearby assistant, so slight it could easily have gone unnoticed. It was nevertheless a silent acknowledgement that the seating arrangements would be restored. The suffocating atmosphere gradually began to ease as the officials carefully stepped forward to correct the changes. William remained exactly where he was, watching every movement with unwavering attention, determined to ensure that the standards he had defended would be restored through action rather than empty assurances. The sound of heavy oak chairs scraping across the marble floor, usually barely noticeable, echoed sharply through the silent abbey like a painful reminder of wounded pride. Nervous ceremonial staff hurried to restore the original arrangement, their shaking hands and anxious expressions revealing the immense pressure they were under. Camilla's chair was lowered and returned to its proper place, while Princess Anne's seat was respectfully moved forward once again, restoring the balance required by the established order of succession. William remained perfectly still, almost resembling a monument carved from stone, his eyes following every adjustment the staff made. There was no trace of celebration or personal satisfaction on his face. Instead, his expression reflected a calm so composed that it bordered on severity, the demeanor of someone who believed he had just carried out an unpleasant but necessary operation to preserve the health of the institution itself. As the chairs returned to their rightful positions, William knew something even more important had also been restored: an invisible boundary defining what was and was not acceptable within the monarchy. The rehearsal soon resumed, but nothing felt the same. Every member of the royal family moved with noticeably greater caution. Their gestures became measured, and no one seemed willing to meet another person's eyes. They resembled carefully positioned chess pieces following rules that had just been firmly rewritten. Although the immediate confrontation had ended, the underlying conflict remained very much alive, only hidden beneath a layer of careful restraint. Camilla continued participating in every ceremonial step with flawless precision. Her posture remained upright, her chin held high in an effort to conceal the emotional blow she had suffered. Yet the confidence that had once come naturally to her had been replaced by rigid self-control. Observant aides noticed the way her fingers repeatedly tightened around the fabric of her gown whenever she passed near William, a silent display of resentment she refused to express openly. She understood that the influence she had quietly exercised through Charles had encountered an obstacle she could no longer bypass: William himself. At the same time, those who had witnessed the confrontation began viewing William differently. Palace aides and younger officials quietly developed a newfound respect for the prince. They saw a future monarch willing to oppose both the authority of his father and the position of the queen in order to defend the principles he believed the crown represented. Many concluded that William's future reign would be characterized not by private compromises, but by disciplined openness and unwavering adherence to protocol. King Charles III walked beside his eldest son, his shoulders appearing heavier beneath the weight of his ceremonial robes. Though he never turned to look directly at William, he could unmistakably sense a shift in authority beside him. William no longer seemed simply like an heir waiting patiently in support. Instead, he carried himself with the quiet authority of someone already safeguarding the institution. Charles realized that personal emotions had at times clouded his judgment, and it had been his own son who forced him to confront that uncomfortable truth. When the rehearsal finally concluded, William remained standing alone in the center of Westminster Abbey, looking upward toward the towering vaulted ceiling where centuries of royal history seemed almost to watch in silent approval. Relief settled over him, but it was accompanied by deep sadness. He understood that standing firmly by one's principles often meant standing alone. Whatever fragile relationship had remained between himself and Camilla had now been irreparably damaged. Yet as he looked across the perfectly restored rows of chairs, he felt certain he had chosen the correct path. A clear boundary had been established, one declaring that personal ambition could never outweigh the dignity of the crown. As William walked out of the Abbey into the cold air beyond its doors, he felt more resolute than ever, fully prepared to accept whatever consequences his decision might bring. At last, the long-anticipated day had arrived, bringing with it all the pageantry and grandeur of a tradition that had endured for centuries. Westminster Abbey shimmered beneath the golden brilliance of royal regalia as the choir's voices rose through the vast vaulted ceiling. Before millions watching around the world and the assembled crowds inside the Abbey, the ceremony unfolded with flawless precision. Every movement was perfectly timed, every gesture carefully measured. The seating reflected impeccable order, while the royal family's disciplined procession projected an image of complete harmony and stability. Yet beneath that magnificent display, the divisions exposed during the rehearsal had never truly disappeared. They had merely been hidden from public view. King Charles III occupied St. Edward's chair, but the ceremonial crown resting upon him seemed far lighter than the burden weighing on his thoughts. As the Archbishop lowered the ancient symbol of sovereignty onto his head, Charles experienced little of the triumph one might expect. Instead, his eyes drifted toward the figures below, settling upon William, who knelt with both deep respect and unwavering determination. In that moment, Charles realized the perfection of the ceremony had come at a personal cost. To preserve the dignity of the crown, he had sacrificed some of the closeness within his own family. Being king meant he could no longer afford to think only as a husband or a father. It required accepting isolation even while surrounded by celebration. Seated beside him, Queen Camilla embodied elegance and composure. Every ceremonial duty was carried out with remarkable precision, and her expression never openly faltered. Yet beneath the polished appearance, subtle signs betrayed emotions she carefully concealed. The slight tension around her mouth and the cool distance in her eyes hinted at feelings that remained unresolved. Although she had silently accepted the compromise that allowed the coronation to proceed, resentment continued to simmer beneath the surface. Whenever her gaze briefly met William's, it carried a sharp edge of bitterness, suggesting her silence reflected restraint rather than acceptance. Among those closest to her, quiet speculation had already begun about possible efforts to restore the influence and prestige she believed had been taken from her. Standing beneath the radiant light pouring through the Abbey, William wore his ceremonial uniform adorned with gleaming medals. A profound sense of calm settled over him, seeing Princess Anne restored to her rightful place, and knowing the integrity of royal protocol had been preserved before the nation convinced him that every sacrifice had been worthwhile. He paid little attention to lingering stares or whispered rumors suggesting his stepmother might seek revenge. For William, Safeguarding the honor of the crown remained more important than preserving his own comfort. If protecting the monarchy required becoming the unpopular figure within his own family, he was fully prepared to accept that burden. As the royal procession emerged from Westminster Abbey, to the sound of pealing bells and the cheers of countless spectators, William walked forward with quiet confidence, breathing in the cool London air. His attention shifted toward the future, where responsibilities far greater than today's ceremony awaited him. He understood that life within the palace would never return to what it had once been. Family gatherings would likely lose their warmth, and the palace corridors would become marked by invisible divisions that could no longer be ignored. Yet within that solitude, William discovered the resolve he believed a future sovereign must possess: a leader, guided not by convenience or compromise, but by an unwavering commitment to principle. The coronation concluded beneath a brilliant sunset stretching across the River Thames. Around the world, the event was celebrated as a flawless demonstration of continuity and stability. Inside Buckingham Palace, however, the emotions were far more complicated. Charles reflected upon the limitations of both love and authority. Camilla quietly carried the determination of someone nursing wounded pride. William, meanwhile, moved forward with the certainty of a man who had deliberately chosen a difficult path in order to defend what he believed was right. The confrontation itself had come to an end, but the deeper struggle had not. Instead, it marked the beginning of a new chapter, one destined to bring fresh tensions and new battles for influence within the British royal family. Was William justified in taking such a firm stand at Westminster Abbey to protect the monarchy's principles, or did his uncompromising approach place unnecessary strain on family relationships at such a pivotal moment? Tell us what you think in the comments below. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe for more stories. And be sure to click on the next video appearing on your screen. You won't want to miss it.